Captain Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon and watched the stars drift past the view screen. She was small for a starship captain, only 5 feet 4 inches tall, with brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Most aliens who met her thought she looked weak. They were wrong, but Lisa had stopped trying to prove them otherwise years ago. The Horizon was not a warship. It was a research vessel, built for exploring new star systems and studying planets that might someday become human colonies. Lisa's crew of 43 people had been mapping the Kepler void for 6 months now. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings from the next system," said Lieutenant Jake Murphy from his station. He was young, maybe 25, with red hair and freckles that made him look even younger. "There's something big out there." Lisa walked over to look at his screen. The sensors showed a massive object floating in space between 2 dead planets. It was clearly artificial, but it didn't match any known ship design from the Galactic Coalition. "How big?" Lisa asked. "About 3 miles long, maybe half a mile wide," Jake replied. "It's not moving at all. There's no power readings, no heat signature. Whatever it is, it's been dead for a very long time." Lisa felt her heart beat faster. Finding ancient alien technology was every explorer's dream. It was also extremely dangerous. The last time someone found an unknown alien ship, half the crew died when they tried to board it. "Take us in slowly," Lisa ordered. "Full scans. Want to know everything about that ship before we get close?" The Horizon moved forward through space like a careful cat stalking a mouse. As they got closer, the alien ship became more impressive and more frightening. Its hull was made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered its surface in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. "Captain," called Dr. Amy Chen from the science station. Amy was Lisa's best friend and the smartest person on the ship. She had studied alien technology for 15 years and knew more about it than almost anyone in human space. "I'm seeing some very unusual energy patterns inside that ship. There's something still active in there." "Active how?" Lisa asked. "I don't know. The readings don't match anything in our database. But there's definitely power flowing through some parts of the ship, and Captain. I'm detecting what might be atmosphere in several sections." Lisa stared at the alien ship and made her decision. It was the kind of decision that could end her career or make her famous throughout the galaxy. "We're going aboard," she said. "Me, Jake, and Rodriguez with me. Everyone else stays here and keeps the ship ready to run if something goes wrong." Commander Ryan Blake stepped forward. He was Lisa's second in command, a tall man with gray hair who had served in the Coalition Navy for 20 years. "Captain, I should lead the boarding party. It's too dangerous for you to go personally." Lisa shook her head. "This is my ship and my responsibility. Besides, if something happens to me, you'll need to get the crew home safely." Ryan didn't like it, but he nodded. Lisa was the captain, and her word was final. An hour later, Lisa stood in the airlock wearing a full environmental suit. The alien ship had atmosphere, but no one knew if humans could breathe it safely. It's better to be careful than dead. The boarding tunnel connected to what looked like an airlock on the alien ship. When they stepped inside, lights came on automatically. Corridor beyond was huge, built for beings much larger than humans. The walls were covered with more of the strange symbols that seemed to move when Lisa wasn't looking directly at them. "Stay together," Lisa said into her radio. "Don't touch anything unless I say so." They walked through corridors that felt older than human civilization. The ship was like a museum or a tomb, preserved perfectly, but empty of life. Their footsteps echoed strangely, as if the ship was listening to them. After 20 minutes of careful exploration, they found what looked like a control room. It was enormous, with stations clearly designed for beings at least 8 feet tall. In the center of the room was a sphere of crystalline material that pulsed with soft blue light. "That's the power source," Amy said, studying her scanner readings. "But it's like nothing I've ever seen. The energy patterns are completely unique." Lisa approached the crystal sphere carefully. She got closer. Symbols began appearing in the air around it, floating like holograms. They were the same symbols from the ship's hull, but these ones moved and changed, forming patterns that almost looked like writing. "It's trying to communicate," Lisa whispered. Suddenly, alarms started blaring from their ship. Ryan's voice crackled over the radio, filled with panic. "Captain, you need to get back here now. We've got incoming ships, and they're not from the Coalition. I've never seen anything like them." Lisa ran to a viewport and looked out into space. 3 ships were approaching the horizon, but they looked wrong somehow. They seemed to phase in and out of normal space, becoming solid one moment and transparent the next. Their hulls were black as deep space, and they moved without any visible engines. "Shadow ships," Amy breathed. "I've heard rumors about them from the outer colonies. Ships that appear from nowhere and leave no survivors." The first shadow ship fired some kind of weapon at the horizon. The beam passed right through the research vessel's shields as if they weren't there. Explosions erupted along the horizon's hull. "Ryan, get us out of here!" Lisa shouted into her radio. "Engines are damaged, Captain. We're not going anywhere." "Fast." Lisa looked at the crystal sphere in the alien control room. The symbols floating around it were moving faster now, pulsing with urgent energy. Without thinking, she reached out and touched the crystal surface. The moment her gloved hand made contact, the universe exploded into light and knowledge. Images flooded her mind. She saw the builders of this ship, tall, graceful beings who called themselves the architects. She saw their war against an enemy that consumed entire galaxies. She saw their final desperate act, encoding their knowledge and consciousness into quantum crystals before their physical forms were destroyed. And she saw the truth about the shadow ships. They weren't just raiders or pirates. They were harvesters. Beings that fed on the life force of sentient species. They had come to the Milky Way to consume every thinking creature in the galaxy. Lisa pulled her hand away from the crystal, gasping. The knowledge burned in her mind like fire, but she understood what she had to do. "Amy, Jake, Rodriguez, get back to the ship now. We have to warn the Coalition."
Yes.
"What about the alien technology?" Amy asked. Lisa looked at the crystal sphere. "One more time, we're taking it with us. The galaxy is going to need every advantage it can get." They ran through the corridors as the battle raged outside. The horizon was fighting for its life against enemies that could phase through solid matter and ignore every known defense. By the time they reached their ship, the shadow vessels had already destroyed the engine room and killed half the crew. But they were alive. And they had the most important discovery in human history. Lisa Martinez, the captain, everyone thought, was too weak to matter, now carried the knowledge that might save every living thing in the galaxy. The question was whether anyone would listen to her. The UES horizon limped through space like a wounded animal. Half the crew was dead, including Commander Ryan Blake, who had died saving the engine room from complete destruction. Lisa Martinez sat in her captain's chair and tried not to think about the 21 people who would never go home again. The alien crystal sat in a protective case in her ready room. Every time Lisa looked at it, more knowledge flooded her mind. She could see things now that she had never noticed before. Patterns in the star charts that revealed hidden jump routes. Weaknesses in Coalition ship designs that made them easy targets. Most frightening of all, she could sense the shadow ships, even when they were phased out of normal space. "Captain," said Dr. Amy Chen, walking onto the bridge with dark circles under her eyes. "I've been studying the crystal's energy patterns. Whatever happened to you when you touched it, the effects are still growing stronger." Lisa nodded. Had expected as much. The architect knowledge wasn't just information stored in a computer. It was a living consciousness that was slowly merging with her own mind. She could feel it changing her, making her think faster and see further than any human should be able to. "Are you still you?" Amy asked quietly. I think so," Lisa replied, "but I'm becoming something more." The architects faced the same enemy we're facing now, called them the Devourers, beings that consume the life force of entire civilizations. The shadows are just their advanced scouts. Amy sat down heavily in the science officer's chair. "How many ships do they have?" "Enough to destroy every planet in the galaxy," Lisa said. "The architects had technology far beyond anything the Coalition. has ever dreamed of, and they still lost. Their only choice was to abandon their physical forms and encode their consciousness into quantum crystals, hoping that someday another species would find their knowledge and succeed where they failed. The journey back to Coalition space took 3 weeks. During that time, Lisa studied everything the crystal could teach her. She learned about weapons that could phase through matter, shields that existed in multiple dimensions, and engines that could travel faster than light without using jump gates. But most importantly, she learned about strategy and tactics from a species that had fought a galactic war for 10,000 years, when the horizon finally reached Earth's solar system. Lisa was no longer quite human. She could predict enemy movements. Before they happened, she could see weaknesses in any defense. She could calculate the outcomes of battles before they were fought. The architect consciousness was becoming part of her, and she wasn't sure if that was salvation or damnation. The Coalition High Council met on Unity Station, a massive space station that orbited between Earth and Mars. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the Great Chamber to hear Lisa's report. She stood before them in her uniform, looking small and insignificant compared to the towering Vorthok warriors and the elegant Zilani scientists. General Krex of the Vorthok military was the first to speak. He was 8 feet tall, with 4 arms, and skin like armored plates. Captain Martinez claims to have survived an encounter with these shadow ships, yet her vessel shows clear signs of running from battle rather than fighting with honor. Lisa kept her voice calm. General, these enemies can phase through solid matter. Your honor-based tactics won't work against them. They don't follow any rules of warfare that you understand. Impossible, Krex growled. No weapon can pass through proper armor. You humans always make excuses for your weakness. The Zilani science counselor raised one delicate hand. Zilani looked like tall, thin humans with pale blue skin and large, black eyes. Captain Martinez, you claim to have alien technology that can help us fight this threat. Where is your evidence? Lisa gestured to Lieutenant Jake Murphy, who brought forward the crystal case. This contains the accumulated knowledge of a species called the Architects. They fought the same enemy we're facing now for thousands of years. Zilani counselor examined the crystal with sophisticated scanning equipment. Interesting energy patterns, but hardly proof of your extraordinary claims. For all we know, this is simply an advanced power cell from some unknown species. Thress of the Corvani spoke next. The Corvani were amphibious beings who controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes. Elder Thress was old even by Corvani standards, his blue-green skin marked with the scars of many years in space. I've lived for 300 years and traveled to every corner of known space. In recent months, I have heard whispers from the Outer Rim. Ships disappearing without distress calls. Colonies going silent overnight. Something is hunting us. Rumors and fear dismissed General Krex. The Coalition military has investigated these reports. We found no evidence of organized attacks. Because you don't know how to look, Lisa said, feeling the architect knowledge flow through her mind. The shadows don't attack the way you expect. They phase in, harvest what they need, and phase out before anyone knows they were there. By the time you arrive to investigate, there's nothing left but empty worlds. The debate continued for hours. Most of the council members dismissed Lisa's warnings as human hysteria. They couldn't accept that their advanced civilization might be helpless against an enemy they didn't understand. The Vorthok trusted in their military might. The Zilani believed their science could solve any problem. The other species followed their lead. Only a few individuals seemed to take Lisa seriously. Dr. Amy Chen presented her scientific analysis of the shadow attack patterns. Lieutenant Commander Carlos Rodriguez, a tactical officer from the Coalition Defense Force, spoke about the unusual nature of the ship disappearances. And Elder Thress shared his own observations from the trade networks. But their voices were drowned out by the majority who wanted to believe that the coalition was strong enough to handle any threat. We appreciate your report, Captain Martinez, said the Zilani counselor finally. But we see no need for panic or drastic changes to our defense policies. The Coalition has protected this galaxy for over a century. We will continue to do so. Lisa felt anger burning in her chest, but it wasn't entirely her own emotion. The architect consciousness shared her frustration with these short-sighted politicians, who refused to see the danger approaching them. "What about the technology?" Lisa asked. "The crystal contains information that could revolutionize our defenses. Any alien technology must be studied by coalition scientists before it can be approved for military use." The counselor replied, "This process typically takes several years." "We don't have several years," Lisa said. "We might not have several months." "That will be all, Captain Martinez," General Krex said dismissively. "You are relieved of command pending a full investigation of your conduct during the incident." Lisa walked out of the council chamber feeling like she had just watched her own species sign its death warrant. The most powerful beings in the galaxy had just decided that the greatest threat in galactic history wasn't worth taking seriously. But as she left the station, she wasn't entirely alone. Amy Chen caught up with her in the corridor, along with Carlos Rodriguez and Elder Thress. "They're fools," Rodriguez said quietly. "I've seen the attack patterns you described. Something is systematically destroying Outer Rim colonies." The trade. "Routes are becoming more dangerous every day," Elder Thress added. "My people are starting to avoid entire sectors." "What do we do now?" Amy asked. Lisa looked at her friends and felt the architect knowledge stirring in her mind. The original plan had been to work within the coalition system, to convince the leadership to take action through proper channels. But that had failed. "We find another way," Lisa said. "If the coalition won't listen to warnings, maybe they'll listen to results." She was already forming a new plan, one that would require her to act outside official authority. It was dangerous and probably illegal. But the architect memories showed her that sometimes survival required breaking the rules. The galaxy was going to be saved whether its leaders wanted to be saved or not. And Lisa Martinez, the weak human captain that everyone dismissed, was going to make sure of it. 6 months after the Coalition High Council dismissed her warnings, Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched another rescue fleet arrive. This one came from the Tau Ceti system, carrying refugees from 3 colonies that had been hit by shadow attacks in the past week. The Defiance was not an official coalition ship. Lisa had bought it with her own savings and the donations of people who believed her warnings. It was an old cargo hauler that Amy Chen had helped convert into a mobile command center. The ship was ugly and slow, but it could carry enough supplies to support rescue operations across multiple star systems. "Captain, we're getting a message from the refugee fleet," said Jake Murphy. He had followed Lisa when she left the Coalition Navy, along with most of her original crew, reporting shadow contacts in the outer system. 3 ships, moving in the phase pattern we've seen before. Lisa nodded and turned to her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Carlos Rodriguez. Had resigned from the Coalition Defense Force to join her growing resistance movement. "Carlos, are our modified weapons ready?" "Yes, ma'am," Rodriguez replied. "We've installed the architect technology on 4 of our ships. The weapons should be able to hit targets even when they're phased." This would be their first real test. For months, Lisa had been organizing rescue missions and evacuating civilian populations ahead of shadow attacks. She had saved thousands of lives, but she hadn't been able to actually fight back. The modified weapons based on architect technology were supposed to change that. "All ships, this is Captain Martinez," Lisa broadcast to her small fleet. "Shadow contacts approaching the refugee convoy. We're going to protect those people, and we're going to show the galaxy that these enemies can be fought." Shadow ships appeared on the edge of the system like ghosts materializing from a nightmare. They were still the same impossible vessels that could phase in and out of normal space, but Lisa could see them clearly now with her enhanced senses. The architect consciousness in her mind showed her their movement patterns and predicted where they would strike next. "Target the lead." "Ship," Lisa ordered. "Fire when ready." The Defiance and 3 other ships opened fire with their modified weapons. Instead of the usual energy beams that would pass harmlessly through phased matter, these weapons fired concentrated bursts of quantum energy that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. The lead shadow ship shuddered as the quantum weapons struck its hull. For the first time in recorded history, Someone had actually damaged one of the mysterious vessels. Dark fluid leaked from holes in its side, and its phasing became unstable. "We hit them!" Rodriguez shouted with excitement. The weapons work. The shadow ships responded by focusing their attacks on the Defiance. Their weapons were still more advanced than anything Lisa's fleet had, but she could predict their movements. Now, she ordered evasive maneuvers that seemed impossible to her crew, dodging attacks that should have destroyed them. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, one shadow ship was destroyed and the other two had retreated. Had taken damage, but no ships were lost. More importantly, they had proven that the shadow ships could be fought and defeated. Word of the victory spread through the galaxy faster than official. Coalition communications. Within days, ships began arriving from across known space to join Lisa's resistance movement. They came from dozens of different species. United by the knowledge that their governments had failed to protect them, Captain Maria Santos arrived from the human colony of New Texas with 2 destroyers and their crews. "My world was evacuated last month because of shadow attacks," she told Lisa. "The Coalition told us to wait for official help. We're still waiting." Commander Thok arrived from the Vorthok frontier worlds with a squadron of heavy cruisers. Unlike the honor-obsessed leaders of his species, Thok had seen his homeworld burned by shadow raiders. "Honor means nothing to dead warriors," he said simply. "You offer a chance to fight back. That is enough." Dr. Zara from the Zalani research colonies brought 3 science vessels loaded with experimental technology. "The Science Council refuses to share their research," she explained. "They think the shadow threat is being exaggerated. I have seen entire worlds stripped of life. I know better." Even Elder Thress arrived with a fleet of Corvani trading ships that had been converted into support vessels. "The trade routes are collapsing," he told Lisa. "My people are losing everything to these shadow attacks. We need to fight back, or we will all be consumed." Within 3 months, Lisa found herself commanding a fleet of over 200 ships. They operated from hidden bases in asteroid fields and nebulae, moving constantly to avoid Coalition forces that had been ordered to arrest her for unauthorized military actions. But the Coalition's own position was becoming more desperate every day. Shadow attacks were increasing across the galaxy. Entire star systems were going dark as the harvesting operations grew bolder. The official military forces were proving completely ineffective against an enemy they couldn't understand. Lisa established her main base in the Kuiper Belt beyond Neptune. The asteroid series had been hollowed out and converted into a massive shipyard, where architect technology could be studied and integrated into Coalition vessels. Amy Chen led a team of scientists from dozens species working around the clock to develop new weapons and defenses. "The technology is incredible," Amy told Lisa during one of their planning meetings. "But I'm worried about what it's doing to you. You're changing, Lisa. Sometimes you don't seem entirely human anymore." Lisa knew Amy was right. The architect consciousness was becoming stronger every day, changing how she thought and what she could perceive. She could see patterns in the shadow attacks that revealed their overall strategy. She could predict enemy movements weeks in advance. She could coordinate fleet actions across multiple star systems simultaneously, but she was losing pieces of herself in the process. Sometimes she would forget the names of her childhood friends. Other times she would speak in languages that no human had ever learned. The person she had been was slowly being replaced by something greater and more terrible, the architects warned. "About this," Lisa told Amy quietly. "Using their technology changes you. But the alternative is letting the shadows consume every living thing in the galaxy." The first major test of Lisa's growing fleet came at Proxima Station, a Coalition research facility that the shadows had targeted for harvest. The official Coalition fleet defending the station consisted of over 50 ships, but they were using conventional weapons and tactics that couldn't hurt the phased enemies. Lisa arrived with 40 ships equipped with modified architect technology. Her fleet was smaller, but her weapons could actually damage shadow vessels. More importantly, she could coordinate her ships with precision that the Coalition commanders couldn't match. "This is Captain Martinez to all Coalition vessels." She BROADCAST as the battle began. Follow our lead and use the targeting data we're transmitting. We can save this station, but only if we work together. The Coalition Fleet Commander, Admiral Hayes, initially refused to take orders from a rogue captain. But as his ships began taking heavy damage from shadow weapons, he had no choice but to accept Lisa's help. The battle was brutal and costly. The Shadows brought 20 ships against the combined Coalition and Resistance fleets, but Lisa's tactics and modified weapons proved effective. Her ships used hit-and-run attacks, appearing from multiple directions to strike at shadow vessels. Before they could respond, by the end of the battle, 15 shadow ships had been destroyed, and the rest had retreated. Proxima Station was saved, along with the 50,000 researchers and support staff stationed there. But the victory came at a price. Lisa's fleet had lost 12 ships and over 800 crew members. Among the dead was Captain Santos, who had sacrificed her ship to protect a damaged Coalition cruiser. As Lisa stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched the rescue operations, she realized that this was only the beginning. The Shadows would return in greater numbers, and the Coalition would have to choose between its pride and its survival. The weak human captain that everyone had dismissed was now commanding the only force in the galaxy that could fight back against an impossible enemy. But she was no longer entirely human, and the final battle would require her to sacrifice even more of herself to save the civilization that had never believed in her. The call came at 0300 hours, ship time. Lisa Martinez was in her quarters aboard the UES Defiance, studying star charts that showed the expanding shadow presence across the galaxy. When the communication alert sounded, she already knew what it would be. The architect consciousness in her mind had been showing her glimpses of this moment for weeks. "Captain," Jake Murphy's voice crackled over the intercom. "Priority message from Coalition High Command. Admiral Hayes wants to speak with you personally." Lisa smiled grimly. Admiral Hayes was the same officer who had called her a rogue captain 6 months ago. Now he was requesting her help, because the Coalition's last major fleet had just been destroyed at the Battle of Centauri Prime. She made her way to the communications center, where Amy Chen was waiting with a worried expression. "Lisa, the quantum readings from the crystal are off the charts. Whatever the architect consciousness is planning, it's building toward something massive." "I know," Lisa replied. Her voice carried harmonics that weren't entirely human anymore. "The final phase is beginning." Admiral Hayes appeared on the view screen, looking older than his 50 years. Behind him, Lisa could see the bridge of his flagship, damaged and filled with smoke. "Captain Martinez, I'm going to make this simple. We need your help. The Shadows have established some kind of massive facility in the galactic core. Our scouts report that it's draining energy directly from nearby stars." Lisa nodded. The architect. Memories had shown her this moment. "It's a harvester, Admiral." "Oh, they're building a device to consume the life force of every sentient being in the galaxy simultaneously. Once it's complete, there won't be anywhere to run. Our remaining fleets are gathering at Rally Point Sigma," Hayes continued. "Every species in the Coalition is contributing ships. We're talking about the largest armada in galactic history. But after what happened at Centauri, we know our conventional weapons won't be enough." "You want me to lead the attack?" Lisa said. It wasn't a question. Hayes looked uncomfortable, but he nodded. "The Coalition Council has voted to place you in overall command of the combined fleet. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but you're the only one who has successfully fought these things." Lisa felt the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. Leading a desperate attack against impossible odds was exactly what the architect consciousness had been preparing her for.
Oh.
But she also knew what it would cost.
Oh.
"I'll need complete tactical authority," she said. "No interference from political committees or species representatives. This is a military operation, not a diplomatic mission," agreed, Hayes said immediately. "Captain Martinez, the survival of galactic civilization is in your hands." 3 weeks later, Lisa stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the UES Victory. It was the largest human ship ever built, hastily constructed using both Coalition and architect technology. Around her, the combined fleet stretched across space like a vast metallic constellation. Over 3,000 ships had answered the call. Human destroyers flew alongside Vorthok battlecruisers. Solani science vessels supported Corvani trading ships that had been converted into carriers. Species that had been enemies for centuries now fought side by side against a threat that would consume them all. But Lisa knew it wouldn't be enough. The Shadow Harvester was protected by over 500 enemy ships and conventional weapons. Could barely scratch their holes. The only way to stop them was for her to fully merge with the Architect consciousness, gaining the power to strike directly at the Shadow's collective mind. "Amy," Lisa said quietly to her oldest friend, who stood at the science station, "I need you to understand something. When this battle is over, I won't be coming back, not as the person you knew." Amy's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "I've run the calculations. Quantum merger process will transform your consciousness completely. You'll become something like the Architects, existing as pure energy rather than physical matter. The galaxy needs a guardian," Lisa said. "Someone who can watch for threats like this and stop them before they grow too powerful. I'm going to become..." The final battle began at the edge of the galactic core, where space itself was twisted by the gravitational forces of millions of stars. The Shadow Harvester hung in the void like a massive tumor, already 30 miles across, and growing larger every hour. Energy streams flowed from nearby stars into its dark structure, feeding its terrible purpose. Lisa commanded the fleet with precision that seemed impossible to her officers. She could see every ship, predict every enemy movement, coordinate attacks. Across hundreds of light years of space, the Architect consciousness was fully awakened now, flowing through her mind like liquid fire. "First wave, engage the outer defense perimeter," she ordered. "Second wave, focus fire on the Harvester support structures. Third wave, stand by for my signal." The battle was like nothing anyone had ever seen. Entire squadrons of ships phased in and out of normal space, firing weapons that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Shadow Defenders fought with desperate fury, knowing that this was their last chance to complete their harvest. But Lisa's forces had advantages that the Shadows hadn't expected. The mixed fleet could adapt and change tactics in ways that the rigid Shadow hierarchy couldn't match. Human creativity combined with Vorthok courage, Zalani intelligence, and Corvani resourcefulness to create something greater than any single species could achieve. The turning point came when Lisa led a direct assault on the Harvester itself. As her ship approached the massive structure, she felt the Architect consciousness reaching out toward the quantum crystals that powered her weapons and shields. "All ships, pull back to minimum safe distance," she ordered. "What happens next isn't something you want to be close to." Lisa walked to the center of the Victory's Bridge, where a crystalline chamber had been constructed using pure Architect technology. As she stepped inside, energy began flowing through her body, transforming her at the molecular level. She felt her physical form dissolving, her consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of flesh and bone. She became something vast and terrible, a quantum entity capable of existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. With her new awareness, Lisa reached out toward the Shadow Harvester and the collective mind that controlled it. The Shadows were ancient and powerful, but they had grown complacent over millions of years of easy conquest. They weren't prepared to face an opponent who could match their own supernatural abilities. The battle between Lisa's transformed consciousness and the Shadow Collective lasted only moments in real time, but it felt like hours to the watching fleet. Energy storms erupted around the Harvester as two godlike beings fought for the fate of the galaxy. In the end, Lisa's human determination and the Architect knowledge proved stronger than the Shadow's ancient hunger. The collective mind shattered, and every shadow ship in the galaxy simply stopped moving as their controlling intelligence died. The Harvester began collapsing in on itself, its stolen energy returning to the stars it had drained. Within hours, the greatest threat in galactic history had been reduced to harmless debris drifting through space, but the victory came at the ultimate price. When the energy storms finally cleared, there was no sign of Lisa Martinez or her flagship. In their place, a new star had appeared in the galactic core, burning with impossible colors that no natural star could produce. Admiral G's received the final message on a quantum frequency that shouldn't have existed. Lisa's voice changed, but still recognizable, spoke across the vast emptiness of space. "The Shadows are finished, but there will be other threats. I'll be watching, and when the galaxy needs protection, I'll be ready. Tell everyone that the weak human captain they dismiss saved them all. And tell Amy that I'm still here, just in a different form. The memorial service was held on Unity Station, where representatives from every species in the galaxy came to honor the human who had sacrificed everything to save them. They finally understood that what they had mistaken for weakness, compassion, adaptability, and the willingness to sacrifice for others had actually been humanity's greatest strength. Above them all, a new star burned in the night sky, a constant reminder that someone was watching over the galaxy. Lisa Martinez was gone, but her legacy would protect countless generations yet to be born. In the end, they had thought she was weak. Instead, she had led armies across the stars and become something greater than any of them had imagined possible.